There are moments in music history so seismic, they split time itself. April 30th to May 5, 2024. That was one of them. In those 6 days, rap fans didn't just scroll through drama, they lived through a digital battlefield front row as Kendrick Lamar and Drake finally stepped into the ring. What had simmered for more than a decade, a cold war laced in subliminals and side-eyes, boiled over into a lyrical onslaught that scorched everything in its path. Super Bowl jabs, tour shade, AI Tupac, ghostwriters, court threats, and one diss that brought the West Coast roaring back like it was 96 again. This wasn't just two rappers trading insults. This was legacy warfare. Kendrick didn't just want to beat Drake. He wanted to erase him from hip-hop's bloodstream. And Drake? Well, he gambled that charm, streams, and spectacle could hold back the tidal wave of truth coming his way. But the thing about truth, it don't play fair. So today, we're not just breaking down the bars or tallying up retweets. We're stepping back into the chaos, into the raw, unfiltered days that define the beef of a generation. And hey, if you're the kind of person who lives for the untold stories behind iconic moments, the kind that hit harder than a steel chair across the chest, then tap that like button, slam subscribe, and join us for the wildest ride in rap history. Because what you're about to witness is the unraveling of an empire. Welcome to the end of an era, and the beginning of Kendrick's reign. Let's go back to where it all ignited, Kendrick Lamar's Euphoria. After weeks of silence, memes, and mounting pressure, Kendrick finally responded. And not just with any record, he dropped a 6-minute nuke. The title alone, Euphoria, was ironic, because the mood it triggered, anything but joyful. This wasn't a clapback, this was a carpet bomb. For over a decade, Drake and Kendrick danced around each other. Light jabs, subtle shade, and fans piecing together breadcrumbs. But when Kendrick dropped Euphoria on April 30th, the gloves were gone. Kendrick didn't just respond, he dismantled. And the wildest part? He made Drake beg for it. After Drake fired off push-ups and the eerie tailor-made freestyle, the one that used AI, Tupac, and Snoop, Kendrick stayed silent, long enough that some called him scared. That silence? It was strategy. A calculated pause before the fatal blow. Because when Euphoria landed, it wasn't just lyrical, it was surgical. From the jump, Kendrick made it personal. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to destroy. You could feel the venom in his delivery. The disdain wasn't performative, it was real, deep, heavy. Y'all think all my life is rap. I got a son to raise, he spits. But I can see you know nothing about that. That line? It wasn't just about Drake's reputation, it was about his very manhood. And if that wasn't enough, Kendrick buried Drake's tough guy persona under a mountain of mockery, calling him a culture vulture, accusing him of being lost, commercially bloated, and spiritually hollow. Then came the uppercut, am I battling ghosts or AI? That wasn't just a line, it was a cultural moment. A cold reminder that Drake's tailor-made freestyle with those voice clone legends had crossed a line. In using the Ghost of Pac, Drake had disrespected the entire West Coast lineage. And Kendrick, he is that lineage. Kendrick wasn't just defending his name, he was carrying a coast. From the moment Drake used AI, Tupac, and Snoop in tailor-made freestyle, he didn't just poke the bear, he kicked open the lion's cage. Kendrick took it personally. Not just as an artist, but as a man from Compton, a steward of West Coast hip-hop tradition. The legends Drake resurrected weren't just samples or stunts, they were Kendrick's ancestors in the game. And with Euphoria, Kendrick snapped. He turned the entire diss into a trial, not of bars, but of character. While Drake's verses were packed with trolling and spectacle, Kendrick came with receipts and righteousness. He wasn't just clowning Drake, he was dissecting him, line by line, brick by brick. He flipped Drake's 20 versus 1 victim narrative with surgical clarity. It ain't 20, Vone, it's 120 if I gotta smack people that write with you. That bar? It turned Drake's pity party into a punchline. And it kept going. Kendrick exposed Drake's cease and desist letters, rumored backdoor requests for features, and what many believe was an ask for Kendrick to appear on First Person Shooter with Jay Polinas. Cole, the man Drake subtly excluded from the big three in that very song. Turns out, Drake wanted him on the same track, and Kendrick let the world know. That wasn't just a clapback, that was a power play. Because if you're begging someone to hop on your album 1 month and then subliminally dissing them the next, that doesn't just expose you, it humiliates you. Kendrick didn't stop at hypocrisy. He drilled deeper, going after Drake's character, his persona, his empire. He reminded everyone, success doesn't mean strength, fame doesn't mean authenticity, and platinum plaques don't protect you from poetic justice. When Kendrick rapped, "Yeah, my first one, like my last one, it's a classic, you don't have one," it wasn't just to flex. It was to draw a clear line in the sand. One of them had cultural legacy, the other had Billboard hits, and only one of those things survives a storm. But if Euphoria was the spark, 616 in LA was the gasoline. Dropped just days later, Kendrick's second diss track hit different. It wasn't loud, it wasn't fiery, it was icy. Over a soulful loop from Al Green, Kendrick slid through the beat like a hitman in a tailored suit. One target, one mission, no wasted motion. And the symbolism, layered to the point of obsession. The title alone, 616 in LA, mocked Drake's own timestamp track style. But dig deeper and you realize, June 16th is Tupac's birthday. It's Father's Day. It's the day O.J. Simpson's trial began. Kendrick wasn't just trolling, he was framing Drake's legacy deliberately as disconnected, dishonorable, and doomed. And that beat, laced by Jack Antonoff, the man behind Taylor Swift's biggest hits, that's not a coincidence. That's psychological warfare. Kendrick was flipping Drake's own aesthetic back on him, weaponizing his sound, his tropes, his people, all while maintaining a calmness that felt unnerving. While Drake posted memes, Kendrick orchestrated metaphors. And then came the scariest part. He started talking about Drake's own circle. Not random shots. Names. He accused OVO members of leaking info, not just out of disloyalty, but out of hate. He painted Drake as a man so detached, so consumed by image, that even his family wanted to watch him fall. Push already hinted that 40 may have leaked the Adonis story. Now Kendrick leaned harder into that. He even dropped the wildest suggestion yet, that Drake's own empire was a house of mirrors, full of fake smiles, cold hearts, and open back doors. Before you figure out you're not alone, ask what would Mike do? That closing bar? It echoed the paranoia of Michael Jackson at his peak, a genius surrounded by handlers, yes men, and silent assassins. And Kendrick's message was simple. Drake, your downfall isn't me, it's you. Kendrick wasn't finished. Not even close. Just when the internet was catching its breath after 616 in LA, Drake clapped back with Family Matters. It was flashy, 7 minutes long, a whole mini movie. The memes hit fast. The bars? Slick in moments. But Kendrick didn't wait hours. He didn't even wait a full hour. Instead, he dropped what may go down as the most vile, most surgical, and most devastating diss in hip-hop history. Meet the Grams. This wasn't just a record, it was a eulogy for Drake's character. And it didn't begin with a flex, a flow, or a punchline. It began with apology. Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. The air left the room. Kendrick came at Drake from a new angle, not through him, but through his family. Verse by verse, Kendrick addressed Drake's son, his mother, his father, and possibly someone else. This wasn't rap beef anymore, this was a public exorcism. To Adonis, Kendrick painted a portrait of confusion and shame, being raised by a man whose legacy might be built on manipulation and scandal. To Sandra, Drake's mom, he asked how she could stand by her son's treatment of women, inviting her to look at him not as a superstar, but as a man. To Dennis, Drake's dad, he delivered the final gut punch, "You raised a monster." And in a shocking twist, Kendrick introduced the possibility of another child, an 11-year-old daughter Drake allegedly abandoned. Unconfirmed, denied by Drake, but the impact, nuclear, because now the world was forced to wonder, and Kendrick knew that. He didn't present it as fact, he presented it as a storyline, a mirror. And when the internet ran with it, Drake lost control of the narrative. It wasn't just about who won the bars anymore. It was about who people believed. Drake tried to fight back, but the internet smelled blood. With his reputation circling the drain and Kendrick dropping haymaker after haymaker, Drake returned with a track titled The Heart Part 6, a direct hijack of Kendrick's legendary series. Bold move. On paper, smart. In execution, disastrous. Because The Heart Part 6 wasn't a diss, it was a defense. And not a good one. Drake opened by claiming he'd set Kendrick up, that the rumors about a secret daughter were bait, that the photos in Meet the Grams were part of a prank, that Kendrick walked into a trap. sounds clever until you think about it for more than 5 seconds. If this was all a setup, why didn't Drake drop this the second Meet the Grams came out? Why wait? Why let the narrative spiral? Because it wasn't a plan. It was panic. Drake claimed the items Kendrick used, receipts, gloves, bottles, were planted, but offered no receipts of his own, no footage, no proof, just gaslighting dressed as confidence. And it didn't stop there. Drake brought up Mother I Sober, one of Kendrick's most vulnerable records. But instead of respecting its weight, he tried to twist its meaning into a petty diss, accusing Kendrick of projecting childhood trauma onto him. Let's be clear, not only was that interpretation flat out wrong, it was vile. Then came the moment that truly broke the internet. Drake defended himself from the allegations of predatory behavior with this line, "I'm not into Millie Bobby Brown, only women like your wife, Whitney." No one asked about Millie Bobby Brown. No one mentioned her. Drake introduced her into the conversation unprovoked. The timeline exploded. Suddenly, people weren't just criticizing the song, they were questioning if Drake understood how bad he made himself look. The Heart Part 6 was supposed to be a masterstroke. Instead, it was a white flag drenched in denial. And Kendrick? He didn't need to respond. The world already had. But just when you thought Kendrick was done, he went for Drake's empire. In his fourth diss, Not Like Us, Kendrick didn't just clap back. He threw a party on Drake's grave. This wasn't a dark, brooding diss. It was a West Coast banger, an anthem built for clubs, car rides, and block parties. And yet hidden in the bounce was a message as deadly as anything Kendrick had said before. Drake wasn't one of us. He wasn't built for this. Not the culture, not the community, not the crown. From the second DJ Mustard's iconic producer tag hit, Kendrick flipped the script. Remember, Drake tried to discredit Kendrick's West Coast authenticity by naming artists like YG and Chris Brown as real LA legends. So what did Kendrick do? He pulled YG's right-hand man for the beat, then rapped in flows made famous by Bay Area legends like E40, a 2-minute West Coast masterclass. Before Kendrick even spoke, Drake was already wrong. And then the gloves came off. Kendrick didn't just mock Drake, he made him a meme, with bars like, "The 6 God? More like the 69 God." He turned Drake's entire persona into a punchline. But don't let the humor fool you, this was warfare. Kendrick weaponized the beat, the delivery, even the tone. He made people dance to Drake's funeral. Think about how dangerous that is, how effective you have to be to drop brutal allegations and still make it slap. Then Kendrick went further. He questioned Drake's legacy, his manhood, his loyalty. He aired out the weird history with Serena Williams, the disloyal move toward Lil Wayne, the culture vulture tendencies that date back a decade. Then, the final strike. "No, you not a colleague, you a colonizer." That line didn't just bruise Drake. It reframed him. Not as a collaborator, not even as a competitor, but as an outsider, someone who built a throne on borrowed culture, then had the nerve to claim it as his own. The shot heard around Atlanta was Kendrick's final warning. For years, Drake's power move was clear. Attach himself to rising stars, ride their wave, then move on. Future, Lil Baby, 21 Savage, Migos, Young Thug. All of them carried Drake's name into the trenches of Atlanta's trap renaissance. And Kendrick, he noticed. So, in Not Like Us, between the jokes and bounce, Kendrick delivered one of the most scathing accusations in the entire beat. "You not a colleague, you a colonizer." It was the moment Drake stopped being a superstar and became a symbol of exploitation. Kendrick wasn't just making music, he was pulling masks off, because when you trace Drake's rise over the last decade, Kendrick was right. Drake's hits were often borrowed. His credibility often co-signed. His street pass stamped in Atlanta. Now, Kendrick challenged it all. And Atlanta listened. Suddenly, those cosigns felt like chains. Suddenly, Drake's shoutouts and Family Matters to West Coast artists felt hollow. Because for all the artists Drake claimed to empower, Kendrick asked the real question. Where are they now? Future? Silent. 21 Savage? Missing in action. Even Lil Wayne, Drake's mentor, hadn't stepped in to defend his protege. It felt like a shift. A slow turning of backs. Not just from artists. From the industry. From fans. And Kendrick made it happen with one line at a time, one beat at a time. By the time Not Like Us ended, Drake wasn't the global tastemaker anymore. He was just a man, rapping into a void. Drake's final attempt, a track drenched in damage control, The Heart Part 6. By now, the pressure wasn't just online, it was cultural. Kendrick had released 3 direct disses and a club-ready anthem that went viral faster than anything Drake could match. The walls were closing in. Drake had to respond, but when he did, it wasn't a kill shot. It was a press release. The Heart Part 6 opened with Drake trying to claim the moral high ground. He said Kendrick was baited, that the daughter Kendrick mentioned didn't exist, that the whole narrative was a trap, a setup. A stunt pulled by Drake and his team to embarrass Kendrick. If it were true, it might have been genius. But here's the problem. Nothing about it held up. There was no proof, no documentation, no clever reveal. Drake gave us a mystery without a map. He expected the world to believe he'd orchestrated an elaborate sting operation, and yet he had nothing to show for it. And then, in one of the strangest moments in diss track history, Drake said, "I'm not into Millie Bobby Brown, only women like your wife, Whitney." Wait, what? No one mentioned Millie Bobby Brown. No one accused him of that. But Drake brought her into the conversation, unprompted. The internet exploded. Fans, critics, casual listeners, everyone stopped and asked, why would he say that? It wasn't just odd, it was incriminating. Because in a battle built on precision, on narrative, on who the audience believes, Drake had just stumbled into a trap of his own making. Worse still, Drake misquoted Mother I Sober, one of Kendrick's most emotionally raw records, to accuse Kendrick of projecting trauma. But the song isn't even about Kendrick's own trauma, it's about his mother's. Drake wasn't just grasping, he was flailing. In a battle where Kendrick moved like a grandmaster, Drake was throwing pieces off the board and hoping no one noticed. They noticed. And then came the final blow, not from Kendrick, but from the outside. Just when Drake thought he could control the narrative, steer the conversation back into his hands, someone lit a match. A mysterious user online dropped a video. No face, no voice, just evidence. In it, we saw the exact items featured on the Meet the Grams cover: Drake's dad's gloves, receipts, bottles, hotel paraphernalia, all real, all time-stamped. And in the background, Kendrick's diss track played like a soundtrack to a crime scene. The user captioned it with surgical precision, "King Kendrick is not a liar, I am not a thief." Then the ultimatum: retract your lies, or my attorney's getting involved. Suddenly, the narrative shattered. Everything Drake had claimed in the Heart Part 6, the bait, the setup, the we planned it all angle, was torched in a matter of seconds. Worse, the receipts showed the items were from July 17th, 2023, the night of Drake's Barclays Center performance. So not only were the items real, but the timeline matched. Drake wasn't set up. He wasn't some genius orchestrating a mind game. He was just a man who left his skeletons behind, and someone found them. With this single leak, Kendrick's diss went from controversial to corroborated. And Drake? He went from schemer to liar. No more plausible deniability. No more what-ifs. He'd built a defense on fiction, and fiction doesn't survive the truth. In a matter of hours, Drake's last line of defense turned into his biggest exposure yet. The internet didn't just catch wind of the leak, it dissected it, frame by frame, screenshot by screenshot. Everything Drake had claimed on the Heart Part 6 was now in question. And not in a what-if way, this was cold, hard contradiction. He said the items were planted. The receipts matched his tour date. He said he tricked Kendrick. Why wait days to say it? Why let the world drag his name through the dirt? He said it was all part of the plan. There was no plan, just panic. Suddenly, Drake's storytelling collapsed. He hadn't outsmarted Kendrick. He'd been outplayed. And Kendrick? He never had to say a word. By now, Kendrick was silent, letting the world do the talking. Because once the lie unraveled, fans, artists, even casual listeners began seeing the pattern. This wasn't Drake getting caught in one fib. This was a pattern of deception. Remember Family Matters? All those accusations shot down within hours. A quick Google search debunked half of them. Kendrick had donated to his community. Baby Keem wasn't his ghostwriter. Kendrick had written for Keem. Remember the claims about Kendrick's wife, his business partner, the twisted family accusations? None of it stuck. because Drake was throwing darts blindfolded, hoping one would land. Meanwhile, Kendrick, he was throwing knives with aim. And now, the biggest pop star in hip-hop had just been exposed as a man willing to fabricate lies, not just to protect himself, but to destroy another man's family, business, and reputation. In the court of public opinion, Drake wasn't just losing, he was collapsing. But it wasn't just Kendrick who delivered the damage. It was Drake's own arrogance that lit the match. Because for all his lyrical ability, all his fame, all his business acumen, Drake made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the people. He thought he could bend the truth and fans would follow, that his charm would cloud their judgment, that the numbers, the streams, the global icon status would shield him from scrutiny. But Kendrick reminded everyone, hip-hop is about truth, not trends, not TikTok, not theatrics. Truth. And in 2024, the truth was this. Drake had finally run out of narrative tricks. He tried AI pack, he tried comedy, he tried conspiracies, he tried emotional bait. And when none of that worked, he lied to his fans, to the culture, to himself. And Kendrick, he didn't just expose him, he erased him. Because every move Kendrick made in this beef, from Euphoria to Not Like Us, wasn't random. It was deliberate, focused, tactical. Every beat choice, every timestamp, every double entendre. It wasn't about winning a beef. It was about redefining power in hip-hop. This wasn't the old Goliath versus David story. This was a chess master dismantling an illusion. And the more Drake posted, the more he rapped, the more he tried to explain himself, the more he revealed just how shallow the foundation of his empire really was. F a rap battle, this a long life battle with yourself. That was Kendrick's final line on Meet the Grams. Not a diss, a diagnosis. And Drake, he didn't have the tools to respond to that because Kendrick had moved the fight from microphones to mirrors, and mirrors don't lie. So how does it end? Or maybe the better question is, does it ever? What began as a lyrical skirmish transformed into a cultural reckoning. By the time the dust settled, Kendrick hadn't just taken aim at Drake's ego. He'd questioned the very structure that allowed it to thrive unchecked for over a decade. And that's why this beef didn't just belong to them. It belonged to us. To the fans who watched it unfold in real time. To the artists who stayed silent or spoke volumes. To the blogs, the barbershops, the college campuses, the late-night Twitter threads that turned every drop into discourse. April 30th to May 5, 2024. That wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. Kendrick Lamar didn't just win a rap battle. He reset the genre. He made us question influence. He challenged the blurred line between celebrity and credibility. He reminded us that lyricism is still the lifeblood of this culture, and that no matter how big you get, you're never too big to be checked. And Drake, well, for all his hits, for all his accolades, the Sixth God ended up looking very human, fallible, out of touch, vulnerable in ways he couldn't meme or sing his way out of. His empire? Still standing, but cracked. Because while Kendrick didn't take Drake's fanbase or Spotify reign, he took his aura. And in hip-hop, aura is everything. 1 year later, the dust may have settled, but the aftershocks are still being felt. Kendrick's name rings louder, Drake's trust runs thinner, and as whispers grow of more music, more shots, more receipts, we're left wondering, was this the end or just the beginning? If you've made it this far, drop your favorite diss in the comments. Euphoria, Meet the Grams, Not Like Us, let us know what hit hardest. And hey, if you love legendary breakdowns like this one, smash that like button like it owes you money, subscribe so you never miss a war story again, and ring the bell like Kendrick rang the death knell on the Six Gods era. Because in this game, legends aren't born. They're forged in fire. Now that we've walked through every diss, every leak, every lie, and every lyrical ambush, there's one truth left standing in the ashes. This wasn't just a beef. This was a reckoning. Let's rewind. Drake, once untouchable, floating above the genre like an algorithmic deity, finally came face to face with someone who wasn't here to play. Kendrick Lamar showed up for war. Not with gimmicks, not with props, with bars, with history, with intention. Every track was a chapter, every line a scalpel, and every move, deliberate. He didn't just drop songs, he dropped architecture. And the most haunting part, Kendrick wasn't chasing a win. He was chasing truth. He called out the hypocrisy, the pandering, the co-opting of black art for commercial gain, the behind-the-scenes silence, the fake solidarity. He lit a fire under everyone, from mainstream rappers to gatekeepers, and demanded that hip-hop look in the mirror. And on the other side of that mirror was Drake, exposed. A man so used to being adored, he never imagined being questioned. But Kendrick did more than question him. He cross-examined him, he laid out the evidence, let the people judge, and in the end, the verdict didn't come from the charts. It came from the culture. And culture said Kendrick Lamar won, not just because of the bars, because of the impact, because of the shift. Because when Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, a track that could be played in a club and studied in a lecture hall, it became more than a diss. It became a movement, a signal that the tide had turned. So now that the smoke is cleared and the echoes of the last diss track have faded, the real question becomes, what now? Because this battle didn't just shake two artists, it shook the entire genre. What Kendrick Lamar and Drake did from April to May of 2024 will be studied for years. This was the Illmatic versus Reasonable Doubt debate in real time. The Nas versus Jay-Z for a new generation. But with social media as the arena, and every fan, every blog, every artist playing referee. And here's the twist. The old rules don't apply anymore. This beef taught us that your streaming numbers can't save you from a bar that cuts to the bone. That your fame can't protect you from truth. That when the world stops spinning for a week to watch two icons trade haymakers, what matters is not how many hits you have, but how deep your words land. Kendrick didn't just come to rap. He came to restore balance. To remind the industry that artistry still matters. That pen games can still shake nations. That being real isn't just a tagline, it's a responsibility. And Drake, whether he rebounds or retreats, one thing is for sure, he'll never be seen the same again. Not by fans, not by peers, not by himself. Because for the first time in his career, he met a challenger who didn't want to borrow his light, but turn it off completely. And Kendrick did. One diss at a time, one truth at a time. What we witnessed wasn't just beef. It was the great unveiling. A rap war for the digital age where legacy, not clout, was on the line. Where Kendrick Lamar reminded us why he's not just part of the big three, he's the standard. And with every bar, every layered metaphor, and every devastating punchline, he didn't just aim at Drake. He rewrote the rules of what a diss can be. So now the ball's in Drake's court. But here's the real question. Does he even have the pen sharp enough to pick it back up?